Starvation happened in the camps only in the last months of the war, but Eisenhower wants the public to believe that starvation was one of the normal practices of the Germans in these camps. Eisenhower wants everyone to think that the condition of the camps as the Allies found them was the same condition as they had always been. Eisenhower's spin then reverberates into what educated Americans believe today, that one way the Germans tried to kill Jews was by slowly starving them to death while overworking them in factories. But consider why this is muddled thinking. The German troops are relying on these factories for support. Starvation creates lethargy and spacey-headedness, not good traits for someone building aircraft or bombs. The Germans would have managed their labor pool in a smart way that best supported their troops. Both books confirm that starvation in the camps only happened in the last months of the war. In the Buchenwald report, a former inmate writes a section called "The Food Supply" and gives a breakdown of food rationing. He writes that a year before the camp was liberated, the camp food rations were about equal to the basic rations for the civilian population. Equal to the civilian population. In general, the food rations for camp inmates remained constant up to February 1945. That's 2 months before the end of the war. With the flood of soldiers returning from the east and the evacuation of the eastern camps and the German civilian population, food rations for the camp inmates were radically reduced. For 10 months, food rations at Buchenwald were equal to food rations in the German civilian population. Because of Eisenhower's legacy of concentration camp disinformation, most Americans would not believe that if you told them. The food supply in the camps was related to the food supply in Germany, and there was a food shortage in Germany near the end of the war due to a number of factors. 1. An Allied food blockade. 2. The German government infrastructure beginning to collapse at the end of the war. 3. Allied bombing of trains needed to transport food. And 4. Millions of refugees fleeing the advancing Soviet army who also needed to be fed. But regarding starvation in Europe during World War II, let's consider whether the USA and Britain bear any responsibility. In a footnote in the book After Daybreak by Ben Shepherd, we read, "Many of the major charities in Britain had other preoccupations, most notably with the consequences of the Allied policy of blockade, which prevented food aid from reaching German-occupied Europe, in the mistaken belief that by letting millions of Europeans starve, the German war economy would be weakened." Oxfam, the Oxford Committee for Famine Relief, was founded in 1942, especially to lobby the British government to change its blockade policy, but although an exception was made in the case of Greece, after some 500,000 Greeks had died of starvation, Churchill and his ministers refused to change tack. 500,000 Greeks died of starvation? That's 10 times more than what the Allies found in the concentration camps. Why have I never heard of that before? For some reason, British and American World War II TV shows never informed their viewers about British and American-caused starvation deaths. 2 years before this footage of Ohrdruf was taken, there was a famine in the British Empire that killed 2.5 million people. The United States offered no help. It's hard to find a single photo of the Bengal famine. One finds a sketch. To see one of the many causes of it, we read in Ben Shepherd's book. It then turned out that Churchill's decision earlier in the year to divert shipping from the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean in order to attack Italy had removed much of the transport needed to bring relief supplies from abroad. The USA and Britain are responsible for way more starvation deaths than starvation deaths that happened in the Nazi camps.